Hey there, welcome to episode 46 of Money Never Sleeps, a podcast that looks inside the head of entrepreneurs and at what makes them do what they do. I'm Pete Townsend, your co-host of Money Never Sleeps, along with a larger-than-life Owen Fitzgerald. This episode of Money Never Sleeps is kindly sponsored by Ireland's fintech and financial services recruitment specialist, Top Tier Recruitment. If you or a colleague need help attracting and retaining great talent for your fintech or financial services company, we highly recommend you have a chat with the team at Top Tier Recruitment, as they really know their stuff. You can find them at toptierrecruitment.com and tell them we sent you. In this episode, we talked to Dean Klatt, founder and CEO of Seed Golf, an Ireland-based global golf brand launched in 2017. As a majority of the entrepreneurs we talked to on Money Never Sleeps are operating in the tech space, it was a bit different talking to someone producing actual physical goods, and it was fascinating at the same time. Whether that's a sign of the times or an indicator of where our heads are at these days, who knows? So away we go with episode 46 of Money Never Sleeps. Here we go again. Welcome to Money Never Sleeps. We're here in WeWork Dublin Landings in the offices of our sponsor, Top Tier Recruitment. I'm Pete Townsend.
And I'm Owen Fitzgerald.
And we're on with Dean Klatt, founder and CEO of Seed Golf. Welcome to the show, Dean.
Thanks for having me, boys.
Excellent. Thanks for coming on to the show. So, Dean, we know each other well enough at this stage after we were introduced by Rich Corbett, who was on episode 32 of Money Never Sleeps. But this is your first time meeting Owen, and you guys exchanged your pleasantries before we hit record. But anyway, Dean, for our listeners who may not know your backstory, maybe just give us your history and how you got to this point, just to kind of get us started.
Okay, that's a kind of an interesting story. You can probably tell by my accent I'm not actually Irish. So my career started down in Australia probably about 25 years ago. So my dad's actually a golf pro. That's how I ended up in the golf industry. So the brand we're working on at the moment is a golf brand called Seed Golf. And I kind of just fell into the industry, really. Started out working in a warehouse, ended up in sales, and then one thing led to another. Ended up running my own business down there. Sold that to a Japanese company, married an Irish girl, and moved over here about 10 years ago. And it's been a bit of a process to get to the stage where we are now, but that's sort of a very concise version of how I ended up here.
All right. No, I get that. And I've looked at LinkedIn, as I do, and I'm kind of starting to get the feel for the story. I mean, I've heard that you are a marketing whiz and a brand genius.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I've definitely spent a bit of time on marketing.
There's a love of golf, obviously,
yeah, for sure.
that's hardwired into you. Mm-hmm. But the 20 years with Cleveland Golf, mm-hmm. Starting off, and then you did, there was a Nickent Golf in there for a couple of years. There was Phoenix Brands, Kicker Golf, OGO Golf, and around the time of the last 7-8 years, there was a couple of web platforms in there as well that you had responsibility for getting up and running before you did Seed Golf. With Seed Golf being kind of the way that I talk about it to folks when I'm helping to tell your story a bit after we met, and you gave me one of your Seed Golf balls, and I carried that around in my pocket for a month for inspiration. And, I've been saying it's kind of like the Dollar Shave Club, but for golf balls.
Yeah.
And not everybody's familiar with the Dollar Shave Club, but maybe just talk a minute about the business model, about how you're doing this.
Well, I came very much from a traditional business or distribution background. So the 20 years with Cleveland was really interesting because when I started with them, they were a very, very small company, just with a very small presence on the tour in the States, and really were making persimmon or timber woods and these wedges, so two products really. Anyway, we had this fantastic run with them, and it grew to, I think it was 4th or 5th largest company in the world, and we sort of rode that wave along with them. But it was a really great experience to see behind the curtains of how to build a golf brand and how to take something from nothing that had a really, quite a high product reputation with tour professionals and that sort of thing, and develop it into a proper consumer brand. And I think, coming from that traditional background and then seeing how golf's a funny industry. It's a very slow-moving, conservative, traditional industry, and it kind of does allow you to. What we're doing with Seed, you mentioned Dollar Shave Club. It was definitely that was one of the companies we looked at that influenced what we were doing. There was a couple of others as well. There's a watch brand called MT Movement, which was another one we followed that just grew, I think, to about 100 million in sales, just purely by Instagram and Facebook marketing, non-traditional kind of marketing. So there's a few companies like that I was watching just as a business manager. You tend to look at other industries and see what's going on to try and to see where your industry might be headed. And as I said there before, golf's kind of slow moving. So we're probably 5 years behind where everybody else is. So seeing what was happening in other industries, and I could see it happening in my own industry with a couple of those other brands you mentioned. I did a couple of internet plays, brought some product in golf product that we did online, and you could see that the consumer was very open to new brands, new products, and to buying online. That was just becoming more and more prevalent, which it is in every industry. And what I was finding in the traditional side of the golf industry was that really the constriction point was at the retail network, is that it's just difficult for those guys to compete with what's going on in the online space. So I just felt there was an opportunity to do what we were doing. Golf, it tends to be an expensive sport as well. So we thought if we could shave some cost from people, make the game more enjoyable, more affordable, that would be a good thing as well. So that was kind of our mantra when we started. That's what we were aiming to do.
Okay. I mean, was it just purely gap in the market opportunity, or was there something along the lines of also, your life and career experience to that date all seems to be culminating as to be a perfect launching point for you to do this? What was kind of some of the personal inspiration and motivation besides just seeing this gap in the market for Seed Golf?
I think I've always looked for where the industry or where the business might be going, and I've probably done that through my whole career. And there was, it's really interesting that the points along the way that lead you to this point, like how do you end up here? And there's lots of different things along the way that kind of led to this, to us doing Seed, really. So certainly there was the experience in the golf trade. There was definitely the experience with being exposed to the internet quite early, particularly in the golf industry, being very early exposed to that and seeing how there was a take-up for that quite quickly, which wasn't expected. And I think as well, having a background in product design, but not only product design, but visual design and that sort of stuff also helped in putting together what we've done now as well. So there's a whole bunch of there's no one reason why I think anybody, like an entrepreneur or whatever, starts something like this. There's a whole bunch of factors that kind of lead you into this position. And certainly moving to Ireland, I don't think if I was still in Australia, I'd be doing this. I think I would have had a different career path. So
why is that?
Well, I think because 20 years in the trade down there, you get to a certain point in your career, you're at a reasonable level, everybody knows who you are, you've got a good reputation, it's pretty easy to parachute into another position in another firm and off you go. Whereas coming over here, I was definitely forced to have to dig a little deeper than that and kind of start again, really. And I kind of always thought as well I had one more big play for my own brand to be done or to be acted out, and I thought if I was going to do it, I wanted to do it properly, and it had to be something that we could sell globally and had potential to sell around the world, really, rather than just being a big brand in Australia, which we've done a couple of times before.
I've kind of felt that with Ireland as well myself. I'm not being from Ireland originally, and that there's something unique here. Do you think that your experience has been down to that, well, it's a small market here in Ireland of only 5 million people, and so doing that next big corporate brand thing wasn't possible because it's not just big enough market, or is there something truly unique about the market?
Two things there. I think there's definitely the thing that it's pointless being the biggest brand in Ireland. I mean, that's great, but it's only a very small market.
Yeah.
So you are forced to look beyond the borders, and you do have to look outside of what can be done, just outside of Ireland. But I also think there's similar to Australia, there's quite a unique attitude here of people willing to do that, I guess, because they've always had to trade globally and trade with the UK and Europe and all that type of thing. People aren't afraid of doing that, so it's kind of like a natural thing to be doing from here. And certainly from the golf point of view, it's kind of a natural place for a golf brand to be based. Ireland has a fantastic reputation for golf, just with the golf courses that are based here, with the players that have come through here over the years. It's kind of a natural extension, I think, for a golf brand to evolve from being based here in not quite the home of golf, but it's not far away.
Yeah. And what drove you to target the balls sideways?
A couple of reasons. We could go purely from a business perspective. It's a really easy product to ship and distribute from number one. There's no warranty issues, there's no returns, and it's a very low. For us with being a new brand, it's a very low dollar or a low euro purchase for someone to buy to try a new brand. So if we were selling hardware, golf equipment, like I used to be doing, it's a little bit more expensive. It's a little bit more risky for a consumer to go, well, I've never heard of this brand, but I'll give it a try, but it's going to cost me 200 or 300 euros to try it. Whereas with us, it might be 30 euros to do that. If the reputation is good, it's kind of like, well, I'll give that a fly for 30 euros. There's not a lot to lose. So it was an easy product to start with to get going. So there was that point of view, and there was also the point of view that the way the market was structured. So there's two brands that control nearly 70% of the golf ball market. And that was very similar to the Dollar Shave Club thing you touched on with Gillette and Wilkinson Sword. Two giant, really big multinational companies that control a huge amount of the market and would have massive sort of resources you would think would be untouchable. But I think because of their size, they leave themselves a little bit open to what we're doing, to be able to go out there and talk directly to consumers and to do it a little differently than the way it's traditionally been done. And we're very much a different type of golf company to those traditional brands. So yeah, we just felt the market conditions allowed us to be able to do that. So the challenge with doing that, though, was that sounds all great when you go, yeah, this is a great idea and there's a business opportunity there. And then the challenge is, okay, well, how do we develop a product that actually performs as well as what's already out there? That was really quite challenging and took us about nearly 2.5 years to develop something that would stand up to what's already out there.
You've talked about being kind of, very intellectually curious and on the technical side of things and the details. And I imagine with the approach that you've taken to get that first ball to market, that you really had to draw on that curiosity to a great extent. Yeah,
look, I had a background in product development, so I had developed golf products before, but never a golf ball. That was the first time I developed a golf ball. So it wasn't just, I could provide from a better golfer's point of view of what sort of performance criteria we were looking for, but we really had to find chemical engineers, plastic engineers, aeronautics engineers, that sort of stuff, really highly skilled people that could help us put this thing together and get it up to that standard. So, and I think from a business point of view or from an entrepreneur's point of view, to be able to, it's easy to keep doing the same thing you've always done, and particularly in my case, it would have been easy to keep doing the same thing I'd done for the 20 years prior. And that's where it really gets interesting, is when you start to branch out into areas where you probably don't have the experience or the knowledge that perhaps other people do, and to start to learn about that sort of stuff as well and bring that into your skill set. That's kind of where it gets interesting for me.
Yeah, I mean, you've had to get into manufacturing, assembly line type of stuff.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And not only that, just from, we're obviously an e-commerce business because we only sell direct to consumers online, so from the whole tech space, getting your head around all that sort of stuff. So there's quite often I find myself in meetings and think, geez, I'm so far out of my depth here, I have no idea what these guys are talking about.
Yeah.
But that, for me, that's where it's interesting, because that's where you're learning and you're developing and pushing things forward a little bit.
Gotcha.
And is the ball as good as people say it is then?
Yeah. Look, I would happily say it's right up there. It'll perform as well as just about anything on the market. So there's a reason for that, though.
What's the name of the guy that did the independent review with the YouTube videos?
Oh, there's a couple. We were really lucky early on. There was a couple of guys over in the UK. One guy by the name of Peter Finch, who did a review for us and put it up against a couple of the leading name brand products, and was very pleasantly surprised with how well it performed. And stuff like that, we really, the first year we traded, we didn't do any advertising at all. It was all word of mouth marketing. And coming through the Enterprise Island program, there was three things that we were really keen to see what would happen. And one of those was, would people buy into the concept? Would they believe that someone could develop a product that would play as well as what's already out there for half the price? So would people believe that? Would they buy into our brand? Would they buy from seed, a brand they've never heard of before? And then most importantly, probably crucially, would they share that story with their friends? So once we started to tick those three boxes, you could sit there and go, okay, we've probably got something here that has a bit of potential, has some legs to go a bit further. So yeah, for the first year, we didn't do any marketing at all. It was all word of mouth. It was just all kind of guerrilla, kind of influencer type stuff. So we did a lot of that YouTube, Instagram, that sort of thing. And it worked really, really well. And we were probably very unusual. Again, coming from a traditional golf background, and this would be no different to other industries, I'm sure. The larger companies would very much send out the press releases. This is our new product. It's the greatest thing ever. It's longer, it's straighter, and this is why. And there's all this technical jargon. So we would send our product out and say, look, we think it's great. We want to know what you think. So you can tell us good or bad. We're not going to influence your opinion. You just tell us 100% your honest opinion of what you think of this product. And I think that's kind of an unusual approach when they actually get something where the company is going, well, you just tell us what you think. We're not going to try and influence you in any way. We just want your genuine opinion of what you think of this product. And so that helped us to get some of those guys to actually review the product, because I think it was an unusual tack to take compared to all the other bigger guys and how they handle it.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the cooler stories around challenger brands coming from the financial services side of things is with Monzo. They're a UK-based bank now at the stage, Challenger Bank. But they originally got to market in a similar way, that no advertising, no marketing budget, but their initial prepaid card or their debit card was hot coral colored, right? And hot orange. So when someone took it out at a bar to pay for a round of drinks, you could see the color and someone said, ooh, what's that? I want one of those, right? And it was word of mouth purely spread that around. And it was just in this whole London fintech circuit and startup circuit and entrepreneurial circuit where people were like telling each other about Monzo and how great it was. And you get these, loyalty points from the different coffee shops and so on and so forth. For the longest time, people have said, that, well, Monzo's great, but are people starting to use that as their go-to, as their primary banking relationship? Or do they still have that relationship with the bigger brands, right? And where they might just move, 1,000 or a couple thousand over to their Monzo account every month just for their spending money, and they use that to get their loyalty points, but then they still always have that big relationship. Have you noticed anything amongst your customers in terms of, have they fully adopted Seed Golf? Are you working on that? Are they?
Yeah, no, it's been really interesting. It's been one of the most pleasing things. So again, along the way, early in the journey, you're looking for touch points of, is this thing going in the right direction? Is it going to have legs, and is it going to make it? And one thing I would say is our customers are so brand loyal. It's amazing. It's almost like the emails, the feedback we get, Facebook, all that sort of stuff. It's almost like we're doing them a favor. It's like it's a really unusual relationship that I've never had before from a consumer to a brand point of view. So that whole concept of developing a product that's really, really good, but then selling it at a reasonable price, at a value for money price, people really appreciate that. The people that are into it are really into it, and they really, really like that brand. So, and it's not just, the brand's really interesting. It's not just the product. It's the way it looks. It's how we talk about it. That whole thing I just mentioned before about not really promoting it, not using the traditional, this is the greatest product ever designed in the world, and you're going to love it, not doing that sort of thing. I think people really appreciate that. And those that know about it, and that's where the whole referral thing comes in, is there's a real discovery aspect to what we've done as well. So the guy that rocks up on the first tee on a Saturday morning, he goes, look at this new thing I found, this is fantastic, you've got to try this, it's as good as what you're using, but it's only half the price, it's not as expensive, blah, blah, blah. And people like doing that. So really,
you want to tell that story.
Yeah, and that's what's happened to us. And really early on, we'd get emails from people saying, look, I bought a couple of dozen off you last week, but I've given them all away to my mates on the weekend, I need to get some more. And again, you're sitting there going, geez, this is really amazing. These, our customers are actually promoting our product for us. That's a really unusual scenario to be in. So it was all that sort of thing that we are kind of starting to go, okay, we've developed something here.
But it's also a nice product whereby people are either giving it away or they're losing it. So they have to just keep restocking it as well.
100%. Yeah, and that's where the subscription model came in for us. That was something that we did as far as I know, I still think we're the only ones in the world that do that. Was that idea of was really, again, from a business perspective, you wanted to try and lower the cost of acquisition and increase the lifetime value, all that sort of thing. But it was more so of how do we, to sort of get to your point, how do we lock that consumer into that brand? And that's where the subscription idea comes in from, is you don't have to shop around for a deal. You always get the best price from us, whether you buy 1 dozen or 100, it doesn't really matter. And if you like the product, then just lock in and get them when you need them. If you need them every month or every 2 months or every 3 months or whatever, just set your subscription up for that. You don't have to think about it, and we just keep delivering them to your door. And who doesn't like getting golf balls delivered to their door?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that there are other things in the pipe.
There is,
coming after the golf balls, right? And there's a couple of products you may already be testing out in the market. How do you actually, is that, okay, well, here's the brand, you love the brand, so here's the next thing? Yeah. Or is there, but like Owen just said on the golf balls, there's a reason to keep buying more and more golf balls. Yeah. Is there a reason to keep buying more and more of what's coming next?
I think so. I think what we've tapped into is there's definitely that thing. Golf is a very expensive sport, it can be, and tends to be, all the major brands tend to be quite expensive as well. So if you want to use good equipment, you tend to have to pay a premium for that. And that's fine. Some people are happy to do that, but not everybody is. So I think anything, what we look at is anything that kind of has similar market conditions to what I described earlier about the golf balls. So where there might be 1 or 2 incumbents that hold a fairly large market share. If they're selling at high dollar prices or high euro prices, that's where we see opportunity where we can go, okay, if we can develop, it has to be, for us, first and foremost, it has to be a great product. So if we can't design something that's not at least as good as what's already out there, then we're not going to do it. So if we can design something that's of the standard that we require and then what we need, so it's really, really good stuff, and then we can do that at a better value price point than what's already out there, then I think those customers that we already have, that's the sort of stuff they appreciate. So then when we bring out other product, I think they were likely to go, well, the golf balls are fantastic, this stuff looks really good too, so yeah, I'll try whatever that new stuff might be.
And so, do you envisage that always being within a e-commerce only model, or do you see kind of a infiltration into some of the retail outlets at some stage?
Very interesting. Yeah, look, e-commerce has definitely helped us to start, definitely, and give us an advantage to take on the traditional, the incumbent brands that would have standard distribution and all the sales reps and retailers and all the extra costs that goes with that. But e-commerce is great, but it doesn't get you to the full 100% of the market, I don't think. And I think retail's changing very quickly too. And Amazon obviously are at the forefront of that. So yeah, I could see a day where we would have probably, maybe not traditional retail stores, but I could definitely see if we got into, say if we started to make golf clubs, for example, I could definitely see where we might have something like a...
Apple store.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Well, there's actually these places in London, which when I was in my previous life, I used to go to a bit. They're actually called urban golf. So they're like indoor golf facilities. So obviously the weather over here is can be a bit more variable than it is in Australia.
Yeah, it's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, so this indoor simulators, basically, it's a bar, really. It's an entertainment venue where you go in and you could play St Andrews or Augusta or whatever with your mates and have a couple of beers and play 18 holes, and a couple of hours you're done and off you go. And obviously time's an issue for people playing golf as well. So I could definitely see where we maybe develop something like that, where there's an opportunity for people to go in and test our products, but it's also in a slightly different, a bit like that Apple Store kind of environment, slightly different environment where it's relaxed. You can test the products, get fitted for the products, all that type of thing, but in a non-traditional retail environment. So kind of soft sell, but still there, and definitely see branded. So I could sort of see, I don't have a time frame on that, but I could sort of see if it continues to develop the way it's going, definitely within sort of 3 to 5 years. That's the sort of thing I could see us doing, definitely.
Okay, yeah, because I think we talked about in the past, Ian, that I had this one experience of where I rarely golf. I'm terrible, but when I do, is usually around weddings where the guys are getting together to
stag party or something.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right. So one of the last ones I did was probably 10, 12 years ago. It was raining. I went into the pro shop, and back when I was a corporate rhymes with banker, I said, well, I need a raincoat, and the only thing here that I could buy that actually, would fit me and actually acts as a raincoat costs $200. And I'm going to spend $200 today on a raincoat after I just shelled out whatever to play golf. Looking ahead, I don't ever want to have to do that again, right? And, whether it's in a pro shop or in a nearby mall, whatever, as long as there's something there and it's a Seed Golf brand, I'll be happy with that. Yeah,
no, I definitely think, look, there is an impulse purchase to some golf products like you described.
Yes.
And certainly the balls there is as well. So we're definitely investigating ways of, the panacea for us would be to get stuff delivered directly to someone's locker at a golf club. If you remember at a golf club to get the stuff delivered there, you turn up Saturday morning and there's your monthly subscriptions in your locker or something like that. Yeah. Even the idea of having almost like vending machines in shopping malls and that sort of stuff, where you could go and enter your code to collect your balls or buy them right there. All that sort of stuff is definitely stuff that's on the agenda.
Or built into the back of the golf cart.
Correct, yeah. So there's definitely avenues beyond straight e-commerce that we will look at as time goes on. But it was just, when you're coming from nothing and just an idea, you kind of have to pick the best angle of attack to get you into the market. And that was the most likely chance we had of succeeding and getting off the ground was just go the purely e-commerce play.
Gotcha. And how did you find the transition from, I suppose, the more corporate type of role to starting this up whilst obviously having moved country as well?
I think I'd kind of got sick of the whole corporate thing, to be perfectly honest with you. And where that really comes from is a lot of those larger brands, they tend to be, they're almost run by the marketing side of the business and also the finance side of the business. So they tend to give you a product and go, here's your product for next year, here's your price, and here's how many units you have to buy. Whether that suits your market, particularly here in Europe, with the weather conditions and all that sort of stuff, they don't really care. They just want you to hit that number. After a while, you kind of get a little bit sick of that. So I really wanted to do something that was a little bit more in touch with what the consumer, what our customers actually wanted, and to try and help them out a little bit, I guess, more so than just doing it from a purely corporate play. So that was a big bearing on how we came to do this as well. And certainly there's definitely a difference. The seasonality, that was another reason we chose the golf balls, I think. Coming from Australia, you play golf 11 months a year, really. There's no seasons down there. It's just summer all the time. So coming here, that was a bit of a culture shock initially. It was like, wow, we really need something other than selling from kind of April till October. If you want to have a real business, you need a product that can sell 12 months of the year, and the golf ball's perfect for that, because people do play all year round, and they need golf balls, they lose golf balls, all that sort of stuff. So it was a perfect product to have a base for a business that has a consistent level of turnover for 12 months of the year. So that was another reason why we chose that. So yeah, all those things kind of funneled into that decision.
In terms of that moment over the last couple of years, since you've launched the product, Dean, what was the moment where you realized, okay, this is going to work?
Getting that first order was big.
Yeah.
That's always big when you put that thing. When you're coming through the Enterprise Island thing, you spend a lot of time talking about what you're going to do. We've got this great idea. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And we're going to launch in the States and blah, blah, blah. And by year 3, we'll be at X revenue. And after a while, you kind of just want to see if it's going to work. And you just want to actually do something, And it's much easier to work on product when you have real feedback from consumers of what they like, what they're taking to, what they're not taking to, and then you can adjust on the fly and go from there. So yeah, definitely that first order was big, and that's really the first review that you mentioned, that Peter French review. When that came through, someone of note, of standing, again, as I said, we didn't influence that. All I did was send him some golf balls. We didn't pay for it in any way. Yeah. And for him to stand there and go, this is actually as good as anything out there.
I watched it, and the line out of that video that really struck me was when he said, "Whoa, this is my new favorite ball."
Yeah, you're kind of sitting there going, actually, we might be okay here. This is, we could be onto something. So stuff like that definitely helped. And then that was just one of them. And then there was multiples after that came through, and then consumer feedback of people emailing in going, "This is the best ball I've ever used," and blah, blah, blah. And you kind of go, okay, the product's good enough. And now it's just a matter of, can we find enough customers to make it into a viable business? Okay. So that's really the next challenge. So the first challenge is obviously to develop a product that meets those standards and can keep the customer happy. And then after that, it's really, okay, how do we scale?
Yeah. We talked as well about, your curiosity, your willingness to try new things, explore, open up your mind. But what are some of the other personality traits that have been helpful to you? And
I think I'm pretty easygoing, so I'm pretty level-keeled. So I think in a startup environment, there's a lot of stuff doesn't go as you planned. And I think if you're too precious about it, you could easily lose the head a little bit and you could drop your bundle and just, you never see the light of day. So I don't know, particularly for this one, it's been really interesting. We've had a lot of stuff go wrong and not go to plan. That's just part and parcel of the job. But it's kind of like really weird. It's hard to describe. It's almost like this inner calm that whenever anything like that happens, you kind of know that this thing's going to get to where you want it to get to. And this is just something that you've got to ride out, and it'll be okay. You'll deal with it, and we'll address it, and we'll fix it, and we'll move on. So, I don't know. It's hard to describe. But yeah, there's been plenty of times when I think that that sort of easygoing nature has definitely helped. There's a flip side to that too.
Is it in the Australian blood?
I think it's in mine, definitely. Growing up on the Sunshine Coast and being around the surf and that sort of stuff gives you an easygoing nature, I think.
What part of Australia was it?
I'm from Brisbane originally, but I spent a bit of time at a place called Sunshine Beach, yeah. So I spent a lot of time up there as a kid, which was a lot of fun.
Very nice, very nice. When you think about, the successes you've had, obviously also the challenges you've had, what are some of the things, maybe something you wish you might have done differently that you look back on now?
That's a good question. There's been a few failures in the middle as well. It's not like everything's been a success. So the first 20 years was really, really good. Yeah. And then moving to Ireland, there was a couple of... I think coming here, that line between arrogance and confidence is much closer than people think.
Tell me about it.
And I think coming off a pretty successful career in Australia and staying in the golf industry over here, I think I definitely had the attitude that this is all going to be easy. It's golf. It's going to be fine. I'll just take control of this market over here. And it didn't happen. And it was really a rude awakening. So I think, looking back, I think coming over with a little bit more of a tempered attitude would have been advantageous. But look, by the same token,
it's hard to do when something so well for so long, and you just this is just an iteration of that.
Yeah.
It's a whole new thing.
I used to be on the phone to people, and I put the phone down, going, "Don't you know who I am?" And then you think, actually, no, they don't. No, they have no idea who you are.
You're starting over.
Yeah, and so that was a bit of a shock. But by the same token, it kind of led to this point. So, without going through those ups and downs and having that difficulty, I think I would have just continued on that path and that would have been that. But sort of being forced to have to go back and go, okay, how do we develop something substantial and sustainable here from Ireland without all that traditional network that you've relied on for the last 20 years? How do you do that? Well, that requires a really, really good product, a good story, a good brand, all that sort of stuff. And then you start piece by piece building all that together. So there was no one thing that caused it to happen, but there's been a lot of work done to build all that out.
All right. And who do you lean on?
Well, my wife, obviously, she's been really good. There's been plenty of times probably when she should have tapped me on the shoulder and said, Dean, this is probably enough. You probably should probably go and get a real job like the rest of the humans.
Yeah, I get some of those looks every now and again.
But yes, look, she's been really good through the whole thing. And I think because of the move over here, I think more than anything, she'd be keen for me to be happy, and she could see that this makes I get a lot.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I get a lot of enjoyment out of what I'm doing. So, she'd be big on that. But from a business sense, definitely Rich Corbett that you mentioned. Yeah. He's been invaluable since we've hooked up together, and not only a great guy, just a great resource for a great network of contacts, and just been super helpful in getting us to where we are now. So yeah, it's been good. I certainly, it's interesting. I kind of, that whole corporate thing you mentioned before, we touched on. With putting this one together, I really wanted to work with people that I actually wanted to work with, that I enjoyed working with, more so than it was just a strategic business move and it was just going to work well financially. I don't know whether that's age or what it is or just experience, but this time around I just wanted it to be fun. I wanted to be able to enjoy the experience. It was going to be ups and downs, and I wanted to drag some people along with me that I could enjoy that ride and get to the end and go, look what we did.
Yeah, you can either call it a period of an enlightenment or you can call it a midlife crisis.
I probably had both.
I prefer a period of enlightenment because I went through a similar experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, Dean, obviously I'm a big golf fan, so I appreciate everything you're doing, as will a lot of our listeners. Is there something that people wouldn't expect to know about you?
What a good question. I'm not a big fan of business plans. I don't know if that'd probably I used to snowboard a bit as a kid. So I was
in Australia?
Yeah. I had a mate of mine that used to have a place up in the mountains. We used to go snowboarding quite a bit. And we do that.
Was that a link to surfing, or was that just...
kind of, yeah. I started skiing and I wasn't a very good skier. So I just thought snowboarding looked similar to...
Okay, so there was no surfing?
Yeah, I used to surf as a kid, yeah. But snowboarding would be very similar to skateboarding, actually. More so than surfing. So I flipped over to that, yeah. So I haven't done much of that the last few years. So not many people would know that probably.
Okay. Were you goofy foot on the skateboard
Natural.
and the snowboard? Natural. Yeah, I was goofy foot.
Oh, there you go. That was your problem.
Yeah, exactly. But what I figured out, because you unveiled this for the listeners, my right leg is a quarter inch shorter than my left.
Oh, there you go.
And so that traction that you would get by having either two skis on the ground or your feet in just the right place on the snowboard didn't work. In terms of,
couldn't get the center of gravity in the right place.
Couldn't get the center of gravity in the right place. It worked on a skateboard because you can, adjust, but not on a snowboard.
That's why you're not in the X Games.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the only reason.
Dean, thank you for coming on the show.
No
really
problem.
appreciate you doing this with us, and best of luck with Seed Golf.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And I know we'll be in touch.
Thanks for having me, guys, and I enjoyed it.
Thanks. That wraps it up, folks. Thanks to Dean for opening up his mind to help us figure out why he does what he does. Remember, if you or a colleague need help attracting and retaining great talent for your fintech or financial services company, get in touch with the team at Top Tier Recruitment, as they really know their stuff. You can find them at toptierrecruitment.com. If you want to learn more about Dean and Seed Golf, check out seedgolf.com. If you like what you heard today, please subscribe to Money Never Sleeps on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. You can also subscribe via our website to channels like Spotify and Stitcher, so just go to the subscribe page on moneyneversleeps.ie and follow the links. If you're searching directly on iTunes or Spotify, Money Never Sleeps is spelled as all one word. For more info and links, check out the show notes on moneyneversleeps.ie. You can drop us a line on info@moneyneversleeps.ie or at MNS Show on Twitter. As for me, I increase the odds of startup success. DM me on Twitter at Pete Townsend NV if you want to know more, and you can follow Owen on Twitter at Owen Fitzgerald9. Finally, thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for recording and editing this podcast. Till next time, thanks for listening. See ya.